In college football, it can take decades to build a career, but it can all come crashing down in a single day. That is exactly what just happened to Michigan's Sherrone Moore. In the span of just a few hours, he was fired for cause and then, believe it or not, detained by police. So we're going to break down just how this incredible crisis unfolded step by step.
This was the headline that just sent shockwaves through the entire sports world. A totally stunning turn of events for one of the biggest programs in the country. So let's get into what we actually know for sure. We'll look at who Sherrone Moore is, exactly why the university fired him, and then dig into that separate police investigation that came right after.
Okay, so to really understand why this was such a bombshell, you've got to know who Sherrone Moore was to this Michigan program. This wasn't just some random coach. He was the guy, the handpicked successor who was supposed to keep that championship train rolling. And his rise through the ranks, it was meteoric. Think about it. At just 39 years old, he goes from tight ends coach to offensive coordinator, and then boom, January 2024, Jim Harbaugh heads to the NFL and Moore gets the keys to the whole kingdom. He was literally seen as the future of Michigan football. And look, he was getting it done on the field. A 16-8 record, that's solid, very respectable. He was coming off a 9-3 season in 2025. So if you're just looking at the scoreboard, the program seemed to be in a really good spot. Which begs the question, what on earth happened?
All right, so that leads us to the first major earthquake on December 10th, and that was the university's shocking decision to fire him. But it's how they did it that really tells the story. See, Michigan didn't just say, hey, we're parting ways. No, they fired him with cause. Now, if you ever hear those two words, with cause, that is a gigantic red flag. It's a really rare and serious move, and it immediately tells you this had absolutely nothing to do with his record. So what does that even mean? Fired with cause. Well, it means the university is saying he did something that seriously violated his contract or their policies. A major line was crossed. And here's the kicker, it has huge financial consequences. When you're fired for cause, you typically lose out on any money left on your contract. Forget about a multi-million-dollar buyout. This was Michigan sending a very clear, very punitive message. And then the reason came out. The university's athletics director said that an internal investigation found credible evidence that Moore was involved in an inappropriate relationship with another staff member. That's a huge violation of their policy. Now, keep in mind, this was all an internal university thing, kind of like an HR issue. But the day was nowhere near over. Just as everyone was trying to wrap their heads around the firing, the story took another unbelievable turn. And this part is really important to get straight. What happened next had nothing to do with the university. This was a completely separate incident involving the police. You really have to look at the timeline of that one day to feel the chaos. So the morning starts with the bombshell announcement from Michigan. He's fired. Then, fast forward a few hours to the afternoon, and the story gets even crazier. News breaks that he's actually been detained by police for something completely unrelated. So here's what the authorities have said. They were called to investigate an alleged assault. They confirmed that Sherrone Moore was taken into custody as part of that investigation and was booked into the Washtenaw County Jail. Okay, so this obviously leads to the biggest legal question right now. Has he actually been charged with a crime? And the answer, for now, is no. No formal charges have been filed yet. What's happened is the police have finished their part and handed the case over to the prosecutor. Now it's their job to look at everything and decide if they're going to press charges. But, and this is a big but, an arraignment has been scheduled, which tells you this is being taken very, very seriously. The wheels of the legal system are definitely turning. So let's just recap. You've got the head coach fired for a policy breach, and at the same time, he's being investigated by the police for something else entirely. It's a complete catastrophe. So what in the world does this mean for the Michigan football program? Well, the first thing is just a huge hole at the top. You've got a massive leadership vacuum. The university moved fast. They named Biff Poggi as the interim coach to get them through their bowl game. But let's be real. That's like putting a Band-Aid on a cannonball wound. And maybe the most damning part of this whole thing is that it might not have been so sudden after all. Reports are starting to surface that these allegations were swirling around behind the scenes for weeks, that major donors were starting to ask questions. And if that's true, this isn't just about one guy's mistakes. This raises some really tough questions about the entire culture and who is watching the ship over at one of the biggest programs in the country.
Just to put a fine point on how crazy this is, sports analysts are digging through the history books trying to find anything like this, and they're coming up empty. One report nailed it, saying the combination of a firing like this and a police detainment on the same day is virtually unprecedented. We are completely off the map here.
And so that's where we are. It all leaves us with this one giant question. Think about it. This is a program just 2 years removed from winning a national championship. And now it is in absolute chaos. The leader is gone, disgraced. The internal culture is under microscope. So, what happens next for one of the most iconic brands in all of college football?